This is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser, and today we're now going to take on Warbringer in Nova Drift. Right, let's enable debug mode and get 33 levels, because that's what we get when we reach to wave 80. Once again, I'm going to state that your mileage will vary. It could be 32, it could be 34, or some other number. But 33 is a rough ballpark that I like to adhere to. With that fulfilled, we shall now make a pretty standard build with split shot. Pretty much the only thing you need to note here is that I have taken barrage, which is pretty powerful, you could say. And also I have taken up... And also split shot does have some pretty nice blast radius inherently. Oh yeah, we're taking up most of the upgrades that these playstyles like to go for. You know, the classics like Essence Sap, Mastery, Shield Cooldown, Strafe even, for that mobility bonus. Hell, they may even pick up some stuff like Improved Thrusters for that extra mobility. And also probably Revelation. Terminate. Another thing that they're probably gonna take. And then they'd probably take something like Power Reserves, potentially for the sake of Saturation Fire. Fusillade is obviously a must. They may also take Force Armor to prepare themselves for antimatter rounds. Speaking of which, Adaptive Armor. And obviously Barrage. And Essence Sap. This is a very standard build that many people have tried. Let's go. Now, the first thing with Warbringer is, if you're playing Annihilation, take out its minions. Next up, screen wrap and make sure the lasers don't hit you. They recently got a buff in their damage, and now they'll delete your health a little faster. The other thing is, destroy the projectiles. Most of its projectiles are destroyable, but that doesn't mean they're not dangerous. Because one hit was enough to wipe out my shield, and another hit is enough to wipe out most of my HP. So yes, although you can technically overpower this boss with sheer firepower, you still need to pay attention, because these bombs hit very hard. They also come out pretty quickly, so although it is actually a good idea to flank him and aim for his rear, you don't want to stay too close to him. You want to maintain some distance so he can react in time to these Mega Mines. Not to be confused with Megamind, the blue giant-headed superhero. Another thing you want to avoid doing is destroying all of his segments before destroying the boss himself. This is just a recipe for disaster. Because the more segments you destroy on them, the more projectiles he fires that are non-destroyable. The yellow ones. Now he's going to spew out a whole bunch of yellow projectiles, and this is going to be really hard to dodge. So as much as you possibly can, avoid... Try to go for the kill instead of just damaging him. If you obey that, however, you will find that Warbringer is very easy. Like, surprisingly easy. In fact, I kind of have a joke about Warbringer being such a weak boss when you have certain build combinations. If you have something like corrosion or deflagration, I don't think I need to teach you out the boss. in all honesty. And yeah, this also goes to show you how important blast radius is. If Glaucus and Dweller weren't good enough examples, Warbringer is very much one of the bosses that gets murked over by blast radius on weapons. Now we're going to try a build that doesn't have much blast radius. Obviously need to enable debug mode. And now we're going for Blade, surprisingly, because although it has good DPS, it doesn't have much in the way of crowd control. This is another pretty common build that I like to do from time to time. Now, even though Polar Inversion will help my blade stick to enemies better, it doesn't actually grant you some additional blast radius. So right now I'm just gonna get stuff like Charged Shot, Power Reserves, Elegant Construction as well, possibly Shield Effect Radius, because I guess we are going for Charged Shields. Adaptive Armor to give us better survivability, Charged Shields, Juggernaut. A Singular Strike is also a worthwhile pick, as well as Velocity and Calibrate. Those ones are actually very much worthwhile. They'll also take Self-Destruction and Targeting. Then it's Snipe. Mastery is a must, as well as Strafe. Reroll around and find the stuff that we really want now. Those being Shield Cooldown, Candescence. Hopefully we'll get Burnout Reactors. But even if we don't, we can still rely on Skirmish to get through a whole lot of our pains. Obviously Terminate, Burnout Reactors, Essence Sap, and I guess if we really wanted to, we could take Improved Thrusters. Yeah, take care of the Hammerhead minions first. You will thank me later. Also, time to screen wrap. And keep your distance as much as possible. Oh yeah, that dealt a lot of damage to him. Burnout Reactors is definitely doing its thing. In fact, I probably should not have picked it up because it did giant numbers onto this boss. I think it is fair to say that if you know how to maintain range and have decent enough AoE, you shouldn't be worried about Warbringer all that much. You'll have much bigger fish to fry than it. Alright, now let's try a melee focus build. We're gonna try the meta Hullbreaker build and the meta Leviathan build. With Hullbreaker, it's more strategic. You cannot just rush enemies. You need to actually time things well. Okay, so the only advantage I've taken here is 4 times Rampage, which is a fair bit. It does give me quite a lot of attack power, but it also will probably showcase the importance of self-control. Obviously, Force Armor, Grandeur is a must as well. Revelation. And I mean, most of these things are superfluous. Best. Let's go. So yeah, go for the minions. However, try to avoid contact with the mines. Even as the Metal Hullbreaker, you're still gonna take considerable amounts of damage just trying to bum rush everything. You want to be strategic about it. Instead, time your strikes so that they hit the backside specifically. That also works. And now go for kill before it spews out too many bullets. Obviously this would be a lot easier if I had Celestial Wave. But then at that point, the boss becomes so trivial you don't need to worry about it. Last up, the Metal Leviathan build. Right, I think that's enough upgrades. Because we're a pretty solid build now. Wrong boss. Wrong boss times 2. Wrong boss times 3. There we go. So yeah, take care of his minions first, if you're on Annihilation. Next up, try to maximize your damage output against them quickly, instead of trying to continue to brush against them for longer periods of time. And also avoid the lasers. They can potentially screw you over. Let's try that again, but this time we played a little dumber. Now since the Metal Leviathan build is still very tanky, you can survive a lot of this punishment without too much issue. But still, playing smartly doesn't hurt. I guess the true last test would be against a non-Metal Leviathan build. And this is where I could potentially die. Let's try the Amoconda build. Yes, this build does have the advantage of range, but it does have the disadvantage of survivability. Also, I accidentally picked up the wrong body. There we go. Right, keep your distance, aim for his minions, and try not to get caught up in the lasers. Or that. Right, I'm now gonna keep my distance and just camp the edges of the screen. Also destroy as many of those projectiles as possible. Right, let's finish this once and for all before he spams up the bullets. Camp the edges of the screen in this case. That's the best thing you can do. Minimize the amount of damage you'll take, and move slowly. There's a certain science video that states that if you try to run in rain, you'll actually be drenched more as compared to staying still and moving slowly. And you could say there's similar philosophy going on here, wherein slow and deliberate movement will get you hit less often than with reckless and fast movement. With that being said, sometimes you will be forced to make more difficult choices, especially in the name of lasers. You do not want to get caught up in them. So there you have it, a guide on how to beat Warbringer. His firepower may seem deadly at first, but if you have enough weapons of your own, you can take him down. And with melee builds, usually they have either hidden power or extremely high DPS, which you can utilize to take advantage of his rather underwhelming rear side and just go ham at it and destroy him. The things you don't want to do is destroy all of his segments before actually destroying the boss, or getting caught up in his bullets and projectiles, as well as the lasers. Because remember, the lasers now got a buff. With all of this being said, my name is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser, and as always, may the Forks be with you all.